Dustin, play Cool Cats by Family Kush. All right, welcome back to Living Vividly. Today we are joined by Jungian depth coach and Vinny yoga teacher Jarrod Roy with Hidden Source Method. We're going to unpack Carl Jung's individuation process in a coaching framework. What does that mean?
Yeah, wow.
Thank you guys for having me. A pleasure to be here and speak to your listeners. Absolutely love the podcast.
Thank you.
I think we can kind of tackle this sometimes misunderstood and complex subject with first, I work under a coaching framework called Hidden Source Method.
Yeah, tell us what Hidden Source Method is.
Right.
Like, what does that mean?
Hidden Source Method is a metaphor that I came up with that I feel articulates two things that there's like a heads and a tails with it. And like the tails part is the unconscious processes and complexes that are governing our lives under the surface, whether positively or negatively. But it's not really the fullness of our humanity, if you will, right? And then the heads aspect is that it's where the self really lives, and uncovering these aspects can really bring us to the fullness of our humanity and an ability to really express ourselves, through embodiment, through the body we're given more fully. That gives us a sense of personal autonomy, self-authority, and deep alignment. So it's really a process, and Jung's individuation process is about like negotiating between our adaptations and our socializations and the kind of script we've inherited that we live, versus really investigating that process and the tension between that and the organizational developmental process that's within us that really wants to be expressed through us. So my coaching framework mixes Eastern philosophy, Jung's teaching on individuation, which embodies like shadow work, active imagination, dream interpretation, meditation, visualization, for my clients that want to take this journey, that really want to understand more of who they are and how they can live from that place versus where the environment has sort of placed us.
This
so
is really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about Carl Jung.
So Carl Jung is one of the founders of analytical psychology, but there's so much I could say about
give us like a brief
this amazing
overview.
thinker.
Yeah.
For the context of today, he really gifted us a map of the psyche, right?
Okay.
And basically, if you imagine the ocean, okay, there's waves and then there's bubbles. Our ego, made of what we know, right? What we know about ourselves consciously, not unconsciously, is like a little bubble on that ocean.
So
right?
very small.
Very small. And inside that bubble is like our persona, and we'll get into that in a moment. And then like the first third of depth of that ocean under the water is like the personal unconscious. It's what we're not aware of related to what we've had to oppress according to how we've had to adapt and interpret our environment and kind of create a persona in the world that serves us to a certain degree. And then from the first third to the bottom is the collective unconscious, which, in Jung, it's consisted of the self and all of the archetypes that you may have heard of. So that's basically the map he's given us. So it's a way to work with what's going on underneath the surface that's really choosing our life for us in a very unconscious way. The premise is to make things conscious.
So it sounds fascinating, and I'm very interested in this whole conversation. But for someone to start this work, they have to really be ready to explore and unpack themselves and all of the things that has put them in the position to move through the world the way that they do, because not a lot of people really want to do that. I mean, I think just with some of the work that I do, whenever we start talking about what has led you from the food side, led you to make the decisions that you make, people get a little bit resistant. So I can imagine that once you start unpacking all of this, it can get really hard before it gets exciting.
It's interesting. You're 100% correct. It's really interesting who I'm actually attracting as clients, and many of them they're really looking. They've done a lot of spiritual work. Some of the spiritual work they've done has really worked. Some of their spiritual work has maybe led them astray, but most of them they really want to integrate their experience, and and others, even without a spiritual practice, they kind of have this little inclination, but they don't have the language that, I've lived my life. I've lived it according to a certain script. I've attained wealth. I've attained security. I've done all the right things, but yet something still feels missing, or a little empty, or unaligned. Like, why am I burnout at work? And the thing is there is this tension between our socialization, the adaptations we have to make, who we present ourselves to be, and that deeper intelligence within us that really wants to be expressed, through us. And, one of my favorite quotes that Jung made was that our biggest shadow problem is that we live smaller lives. And what he meant by that is that if our unconscious is really choosing for us, or our environment, let's say, the script that we're...
Shadow and unconscious are synonymous here.
Shadow is synonymous with the personal unconscious.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and we'll work through like a little process here. But, that we live small lives, and that if we live according to our conditioning, that's a certain life that we're choosing that's not really chosen by us. So working with my clients, I help them to investigate like where they are, their choices that they've made, and the fact of like, did you really choose this life? And what were the forks in the road where like you made choices that really compromised your internal values? And is this why you're getting the results that you're getting from the exterior? And where do you want to go from here?
Right.
In a certain aspect. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very, very interesting.
So deep.
Yeah.
I feel like I have 57,000 questions, but I don't want to get off.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what shadow work is.
So shadow work involves like first observing like the split of persona and shadow, right? So our persona is, and it's kind of understanding both, but we can come at it from like the angle of the persona first to understand the shadow. So the persona is like the mask that we wear, right? It's like how we really, to simplify, it's like how we really want to be seen by others. It's like if you're at a dinner party and you went to the bathroom, what would you want others to maybe say about you?
Yeah.
It's really what was more, and it's shaped by what was more morally acceptable in our environment, or maybe certain things we unconsciously maybe pushed away. Maybe if we had like really straight-laced parents, maybe that we put the straight-lacedness, for lack of a better term, into the shadow and turned into a hippie, which leads to a great life. But, there's an unconscious process. So part of the integration is like, what about all this straight-lacedness is causing you maybe to run from certain things? So again, it's the mask we wear. It serves a great function. It helps us move through life. It helps us attain accountability. Like, hey, Jarrod, be here for 10 o'clock. Like, I'm here.
Right.
I'm wearing a part of my persona now. It has a sense of self to it. It helps us, get promotions. It helps us to develop a career, but it's not necessarily uniquely chosen by us. And the main problem with like the persona is that it's not that it is a problem in a sense. It's like that wearing this mask, we start to identify with the mask.
It's not who you really are as a core human, or like a core soul. Like your soul isn't your persona. We forget that we're everything else, and we become this mask. So it's like an actor in a play. They put on the mask. They maybe wear the crown. They're a king in a play. And then when the play is over, they like go home in like this costume. Yeah, and then they continuously wear it every day.
I follow Brene Brown. I have followed her for a decade or more. And she would call it the armor. It's just the armor that you wear to allow you to kind of almost protect yourself from maybe who you don't fully know who you are, but it's the mask that everybody can see that keeps you safe.
Right. So, in life, it's like, or with my clients, just understanding this process to a greater or lesser degree for who they are is like the first, starting point. And a bit of a crude distinction, Jung said life happens at 40. Everything else is just research. I think it's a little younger now, but really what he meant by that is like the first half of life should be kind of, this persona type creation and creating a sense of security, a strong enough ego to be able to handle the unconscious. And then the next half of life is really about retaining what's been serving us up to this point and then integrating those opposites. And if you guys want to, we can do like a little fun process to maybe peek into your persona and shadow. And then we'll define the shadow after, if that's okay. Okay. So, on a piece of paper, draw a vertical line down the center. So left side, one word or short phrases, and really try not to think hard about this as much as possible.
Just like the first thing that comes to your mind.
First thing that comes to mind. What qualities or traits do you most want others to see in you? How do you wish to be seen? How would you like people to describe you when you're not in the room? Maybe that adds a couple of little associations there. A quick way to really get to the shadow is find like that one friend that you really trust, but they also kind of tell you how it is and say, hey, in 2025, how did you experience me negatively? And within some of their negative experience, that's going to be some good shadow content to work with.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Take a moment, examine your traits, and circle a few, maybe 2 or 3, one, for intents and purposes of this, the podcast, circle a few that maybe feel like a burden for you to constantly maintain.
Oh, now I see where we're going. Okay.
Got it.
And then I want you to choose, one that really, really, really sticks.
Like really sticks in how we see ourselves?
Just kind of really sticks in the heart. Like, man, this is like really burdensome. And I can probably talk about why this is maybe burdensome.
Got it.
Okay.
So who wants to go first?
I will.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Daphne, why is this trait burdensome? What is the trait, and then why is it burdensome for you to maintain all the time? And maybe you can add some color.
The trait is responsible, and it's burdensome because it feels like it's a heavy load that I put on myself, but it's the mask that I am a responsible person, and so people come to me for things that need responsibility, and so it just feels like a heavy load to carry sometimes.
Do you have trouble saying no when people ask things of you?
Not anymore.
Okay, so you've set that boundary.
Yeah.
So what would open up for you if you didn't have to be responsible all the time? That if you could bring consciousness to it and you can appropriately maybe let go of some responsibility in certain areas of your life when you really need to?
I would probably be more spontaneous and playful and joyful.
Exactly. So through the obligation of feeling and overloading on responsibility, Daphne has repressed certain aspects of joy and spontaneity into her shadow. And, we have the good, we have the bad, we have the ugly, but we also have the gold in the shadow. But the energy of the shadow, Jung said that the essence of it is pure gold. And this is kind of what he meant by that, is that there are a lot of good qualities we've had to suppress or repress to fit the persona in a sense.
So I guess part of me now thinks can I be responsible and spontaneous at the same time? And the way that I have designed the mentality of my life is that no, I can either be responsible or I can be spontaneous.
Yes.
So if I go on vacation where I don't have as many responsibilities, then I can be like, all right, let's go, whatever fun stuff we find. But in my day-to-day life, the responsibility way overrides the spontaneity. And I'm a first child. And there are lots of reasons why that has become my persona.
Good for you in bringing the parental imago, the parental image into, why these patterns exist within you, so to speak. But, according to some of the things that you said, Jung said that a neurosis is like a neglected God. And when he referred to the gods, he referred to kind of the psychological powers that govern us and govern the universe. And it's through the neglection means, a one-sidedness, right? So this one-sidedness to the responsibility in the persona is a neglect to the fullness of your humanity, which is in the shadow. So if I were working with you as a client, we would work on, okay, what are ways you can integrate a little more spontaneity in your life? When you tried, well, what's going to happen? A bunch of resistance is going to come up. Well, resistance and fear are on equal levels. And then it's learning to move and work with the energy of that resistance to integrate this, to kind of broaden your personality. But you're also going to face the emotions that you picked up that have been telling you who you are and what's possible for you in the world since being the first child. So it's really feeling into emotions, investigating them, because when we were children, we really didn't have the cognitive brain to understand the thoughts that we were having. We took it on first emotionally. We learned emotionally, right?
So it's
the
goal would be for me
process.
to learn how to be both responsible and spontaneous.
It's bringing consciousness to your need to be responsible all the time. The reasons why.
I'm very conscious of that. It's a very conscious decision. I mean, not decision, but it never goes away. So it's very conscious.
So meaning to say that, so what's conscious then is you understand this part, right? And that it's in the persona. Okay. The deeper work would be to work with the feelings and the emotions that are coming up, to examine the missed opportunities and to understand how that responsibility, like my glasses are really dirty right now, I need to clean them, and it's griming the lens, right? So through your narrative, you're seeing reality through this over sense of responsibility. It's going to change once you integrate it. The way that you see the world will completely change because you're changing at that level. So it's working with the emotions and the feelings that are coming up.
So at what age, I mean, you don't have to give me like a number, but like if I would have done this 10 years ago, it would have been I'm very self-aware of a lot of the things. Like I'm a control freak. I shouldn't say it like that. I do sometimes describe myself like that, but I have some issues letting go of control. And so that has changed. I mean, I see it now, whereas 10 years ago, I would have been like, that's just who I am. That's just who I am. I control everything. But I've been able to let go of some of that. So I think there's a time frame, like I just turned 50. There's a time frame in life where these answers would have been very different. So where do you think it would be outside of any time in your life? But like, where would it be good for you to be able to do some of this work to, gosh, I don't know exactly.
Nip it in the bud kind of thing?
Like to be able to look at the rest of your life as having so much more life. And I guess part of why I'm asking this is because I have a 17-year-old that's about to be launched into the world and he's not ready and I'm not ready. And so like he's probably too young, but at what point in between like 17 and 50 would you feel like would be a good time to really have enough information to start unpacking and exploring some of this? It's a really long question.
Yes,
Sorry.
I like the long questions.
All I thought was when he said he's probably too young, my brain went, you mean too Jung?
Right. So yeah, there you go. So when we're young, we're kind of like swimming in our unconsciousness, and anything that kind of contradicts that, a younger ego usually, ego usually just can't really handle it, right? So you have to kind of let the youth sometimes be wasted on the young,
right?
While at the same time they're developing this strong ego. But I think that the youth is also maybe a little more emotionally intelligent. So it really just depends on the individual. From my standpoint, I prefer to work with people that are like 32, 33 and above.
So you have enough experience in
seen
life.
Some shit at this point of their life. You know?
What?
When they've seen some shit.
Oh, right. Have enough like experience in the world.
And just kind of understand, like I've followed, it's weird. This Jungian path has like led me deep into like studying literature. So when you do shadow work, new interests will just develop. And I just read The Death of Ivan Illich, a book or a short story by Leo Tolstoy. And it's a book about, he was a magistrate and a judge, and he lived a persona life his whole life, right? And he didn't really discover, then he ends up getting like this pain in his side. And then a peasant starts to take care of him, and he notices these qualities in the peasant that are so peaceful that he never had. And then he realizes 3 days before he died that, wow, like the life that I have lived according to a certain script and to everyone else's standards was this kind of emptiness. And it's really, it takes like wanting to look into that.
Yeah.
Why do I feel burnout? What's really underneath it for relationships, right? Like, why do I keep attracting the same partners in my life? So it's for people that really want to know. Jacqueline, would you like to
Sure.
play along?
I would love to. So I circled several, but the biggest one is probably helpful. I like to be needed, I guess, and people always come to me to help with projects or businesses or boards, like whatever it is. I'm the one that's going to say yes and help with everything. And I get myself to the point where I am doing everything for everybody else, and then I get really resentful and burn out very quickly.
Interesting. You were the oldest child too?
And also a control freak.
Okay. Yeah. So why, so you, any more that you'd like to say of why this trait is like burdensome to you? Like why does it feel
It's
like
exhausting.
a burden? It's exhausting. So you feel
But
exhausted.
I like it up until a certain point, and then I don't know how to say no. And that's something that I've been working on. I actually started therapy 7 years ago for the sole purpose of learning how to say no, which was wild. It helped a lot. Well, it helped a little, let's be honest. But I'm working on that now. It's like offloading responsibilities because I just take on way too much stuff. So that is why it's burdensome.
So what would open up for you if you did not have to be so helpful and in control all the time?
Well, I would do these other traits where I'd be happy, fun, and funny. I mean, I think I'm already pretty likable, but I'd probably be more likable to my husband if I was less burnout. And, like I am deep down a really happy, fun person, but whenever I am constantly trying to get to the next thing, I get really agitated.
It gets buried sometimes, huh?
Yeah. I'm not spontaneous. I'm not silly like 10 years ago, Jackie.
Gotcha. And then, so what's one small step you could take, like outside of this conditioned persona?
Definitely saying no to things, removing myself from situations that are no longer serving me, which I am working on actively. 2026 that's my goal, is to offload and work on down regulation of my nervous system because I am fried. So I think that's also.
Yeah. So like if Jackie were a client, we would really investigate, where these patterns began, and we may find some of this in the shadow work that we do, and how to bring more consciousness around them, and how to, when do I really want to say yes, and when do I really need to say no, and bringing consciousness to that, awareness to that.
Yeah, because it's a tricky situation because sometimes I get excited about things and then I resent it later, but I was originally excited about doing it, but then it just became, so I have to really dig deep. Like what?
Like baking?
Baking cakes.
I've had so many different businesses because I just like jump full force into everything that I do. But anyway.
And not labeling you as a people pleaser, but just for an example for the
totally
listeners,
right? You can.
Okay. So like, people pleasing would have a shadow, would have like qualities of overgiving with a deep, shadow of like, of resentment, and probably maybe like some anger. So it would be more about like setting healthy boundaries first with yourself and then with others, but working with the emotions and the feeling states and the tones that kind of, and we'll do a meditation in a few moments, that kind of come up. So we can use our awareness to kind of catch the shadow in the act as it's emerging, and then develop dialogue and really use our meditation, right, to start to confront these images within us versus to just be, the passive witness, right? So like you can develop a witness mind which is very beneficial in meditation, and observe this experientially, phenomenologically, as they come up. And be like, oh, there's that people pleaser energy again.
So when you say witness mind, that's what you're referring to, is the awareness of what's coming up rather than just moving through the emotion, being more aware of it before you make decisions? Like, explain what witness mind means.
The shadow, the shadow character, we'll get into that in a moment, but it's being, the witness is being able to observe your thoughts, observe your emotions without necessarily acting. It's being able to kind of stand apart away from them. Now, when we're triggered and we go full into people pleaser mode, we kind of lose our executive functioning, and we're just lost. We're caught. We're full people pleaser mode in this moment, and we're saying yes to all kinds of things. But then, Jackie has this awareness now that, man, I feel resentful. So then I would take Jackie into a meditative state, an active imagination state. Okay, let's bring up those emotions and those feelings that are associated with this, and we would observe them. And then next time in real time, she can start to feel some of this come up, observe it, and then observe the thoughts of compulsion that the shadow is producing to act in a certain manner unconsciously. Because it's like when we're activated and triggered, it's like there's a wire, like just metaphorically, like say in our head, and it like reaches down into our body and it activates this script, and that script has absolutely no imagination.
And it just takes over.
And it usurps consciousness, and then we're in this full mode. But we can start to catch it through different practices.
Before
and
it
bringing
happens.
awareness, to that. And I like to do a meditation in the moment on that. But on the right side of that line, kind of going into the shadow, and the shadow is just very simply what we had to morally repress, what our environment said for us that was like really no good. Like say like, and kind of the gold of the shadow is like, say you have a small child and he's raised in a family that's like work, but he has maybe artist capabilities and he wants to play music, and his dad really wouldn't let him do that. So where does that energy go? It gets repressed. And then maybe this kid is like triggered later in life by men that are artists, and maybe he has a problem with that, and he's not in touch with his feminine side because of this. So it can be really loaded. But on the right side, write some of the opposite qualities and attempt to lean into them of how maybe you do not want to be seen. And for the context of this, it's like the shadow is things that are contradictory to our ego nature, right? To what we know and to what we think about ourselves. So it's, sometimes like with a people pleaser, the people pleaser doesn't want to be seen as aggressive or assertive. Assertive would be the lighter quality of opposites we would aim to integrate with the people pleaser, but they have this uncomfortable nature with being seen as that, which kind of shapes their behavior.
These are traits that we have, but that we are hiding, basically.
That we're not,
suppressing.
yes.
Bad?
That are repressed, that you have, that are repressed inside of you, that you project a lot of times onto others. So, for the purposes, you could write the opposite of those qualities and kind of really lean into the attempt of how you do not want to be seen. And then maybe circle one or two of those that's really like alive for you, that maybe it's like something you would choose to maybe work with or work on. But yeah, the shadow is like as you guys go through this, it's like a dark room, right? Of like a photographer, and it's all the images. So we repress things. We repress the images of, say, envy, fantasy, anger, lust, shame. We exile gifts like creativity and power, and confidence. It's like our dreams thwarted as well. What did we want to do when we were really close to our instincts as children? And the more that we adapt to our environment and we make interpretations about that environment and acquire like this sense of self that is contradictory to this hidden source I'm talking about, we kind of create this stepping away from our soul, from who we really are and who we really want to be. And this process starts to bring us, into that.
Mine are deep and scary.
You want to talk about them?
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I'll do it.
Well, there's your problem.
I think I have two that are probably One is something that I definitely project onto people accidentally sometimes, and I have a lot of anger.
Well, it's always accidentally. We never going to wake up and say like, I'm going to have like 10 projections a day.
Violence today.
You know what I mean? It just, it goes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's okay. I mean, I do this work all the time, and I'm triggered all the time. It's fine.
Just to be clear, sometimes I do choose violence.
Yeah, conscious.
I suppress
We
it.
know.
I suppress it. You've been a subject of that.
Yeah, I have a lot of anger, and it's from like a billion things that we won't have to unpack today. But
Like
it's
breaking your toe.
I'm pretty angry about my blue toe right now. What do I say about that? Do you want me to dig deeper into anger?
Yeah.
Like,
So it's you have. Well, so what you're saying that you have anger? That's
I
what you're
definitely
saying.
have anger. So the two. Okay, so I don't know if I should stick to one or tell you both of them that I circled.
You can do both.
Okay. So my other shadow is the opposite of being. So one of the persona traits that or a couple of them, it was put together, likable, that kind of stuff. So my shadow is loser, social reject, because I was bullied really bad as a kid, and no one liked me for a period of time, and I went a year without anyone talking to me at school.
Oh, that's hard to
It was
believe.
it still makes me like teary-eyed. So now I just assume still that everyone hates me, which is so dysfunctional because it's not true, because I'm really freaking cool.
You
but
are.
Anyway, that is like always in the back of my head, that I'm just a reject. And then the anger probably has a little bit to do with that, but different stuff. So those are my two.
So could you see
shadows.
how, like, in connecting some of these dots, the need to say yes and to help others all the time is maybe a deep fear of being rejected and being back in that place?
Yeah, because if I'm helpful, then they want me around, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So like the integration of the opposites is we'll do a meditation in a moment, but it's to like find like a moderate quality, like kind of like in the people pleaser, not to be aggressive, but be assertive. So like maybe the people pleaser sees her boss as very aggressive when maybe he's just assertive. Well, if she works with her own levels of assertion, then like she's going to ask him for a raise. She may say no, like I can't stay here till 9 o'clock every night and do these things. And then in the trigger aspect, and how, Jung said that, what we don't acknowledge within ourselves, it's going to show up as at our door, and we will call it fate, is that she may begin to see her boss as less angry and less assertive. We start to see neutral events as not what they are, and our image of things, which that's, we can't really know the thing in itself. It's we're relating only really to ourselves in life. Yeah. So the ability to move past the fear of that rejection would be part of your work. Let's do like a meditation if you guys want, and I'll preface it with this. So the way I begin work with clients is trying to detect like when the shadow is emerging, right? So our shadow qualities, they kind of rigidify into these complexes or these characters. So like shadow characters could be like the judge, the critic, the fear of rejection, the negative, the voice of the negative parent, maybe like the foodie. So like we take like the foodie, for example, maybe she got into like this discussion with her boyfriend or her husband, and she really didn't get to express how she felt. She was afraid to express herself, right? So later that day, she's angry, she's upset, she's thinking about it. A shadow quality within her activates, and the compulsion is, I want some ice cream. And it's just a little more ice cream, just a little more ice cream, just a little more ice cream. How I didn't get to express myself, so I'm actually going to stuff these feelings down. Now, she's not doing it consciously, but she's going to have certain sensations in her body, certain emotional qualities, and usually a voice of compulsion, right?
You just described 75 to 100% of the people that I work with.
100%, because we project over nurturant needs onto food, and food is matter. Matter is mature. Mature means mother, the mother complex. the nurturant needs beyond the energy of food. And what happens a lot of times in today's world is that, I'm not going to say the therapy world, but is that we end up treating, and I'm sure we're not treating the emotional, unconscious problem. We end up treating, the surface level. I have a problem with food.
Yeah,
when
that's
it's really
the way that you describe it way more deep than I do. I describe it as you have an emotional need that has not been met, and food is the easiest, most accepted, because nobody's going to turn to like cocaine because that's not accepted. Food is easy access, inexpensive, and very socially accepted, so that's how you treat it. And it's always, not always, very, very often related to some kind of emotional need that has not been met.
Yes. So we all have what James Hollis, my favorite Jungian author, is reflexive management techniques. Basically, when our anxiety levels are activated even unconsciously, we move to a certain thing that's going to temporarily lower that level of anxiety. And we have functional, dysfunctional ways of doing this, but even compulsive exercise, compulsive biohacking,
it's big right now.
We're really running away from something we need to face. And sometimes I advise clients of like, drop the spiritual techniques sometimes, drop even the functional ways, and just sit and be with it.
With the emotion.
Because the consequences of always using the technique is actually, it's making your life smaller. And if you can learn to work with the energy of that fear, minus the technique sometimes. And look, I cold plunge. It's, the definition of it in a sense, but I see it within myself.
Yeah.
So if we can be with our loneliness, if we can be with our compulsions, if we can try to really understand like what they've been protecting, is that, every shadow element that we usually have when we act in the present day, it was a psychologic choice in our younger years. What I mean by psychologic, it was logical to behave that way to protect us from maybe rejection. But in the present adult day, where we have the strong ego and the resilience to really take this problem on now that we don't think that we have, it's really sabotaging a certain element now.
Yeah.
So it's got a protective mechanism and a sabotaging element. So let's, we'll jump right in. Let's close our eyes. First, just allow, just open to this space of maybe like a witness mind, and just observing the sensations in your body, observing your breath. And I just want you to set an intention to really kind of open your mind and your imagination to investigate this process a little bit more deeply. And then maybe recall a moment in recent time where you maybe behaved in like one of these compulsive ways. Maybe you said yes to something you didn't want to, or you felt overly responsible. Something of that nature, where maybe, or you were triggered. And I want you to really feel into maybe the bodily sensations that you're experiencing as you recall this event up. We're kind of working with the afterglow of it. And where do you feel these certain sensations in your body? Maybe it's like a lump in your throat. Maybe it's a heaviness in your chest. So when the shadow character takes over the complex, you're going to feel something in your body. And then, what are the feelings or emotions that are associated that you're experiencing now? Just kind of aiming to work with how you feel or how you might have felt. And then, what are the thoughts being produced? What is it compelling you to do? What is it maybe driving you to do, wanting to do? For the foodie, it might be just a little more ice cream. For the people pleaser, it might be, I'll say yes to this project even though I know I don't want to do it. Now, in your imagination, I want you to give this, the sum of all of this, a certain image. So maybe for the foodie, it's like, a person eating. Just give it an image in your mind. And then I'd like you to dialogue with it. I'd like you to ask it, what do you really want? Why are you here? When did you come about? Was it my childhood? Was it later? What are you afraid of? What were you protecting me from at this time when you did come about? And then maybe cognize what this behavior is really sabotaging for you now. Okay, we can softly open our eyes and come back into the room. So anybody want to talk about their experience?
Nope.
I'll save Jackie. Okay, so I've realized like the things that I wrote were that being responsible. So we talked about responsibility and spontaneity. But the other thing that happens is that I suppress imagination and creativity. I've never been a creative person. In fact, as a side note, and I have learned that creativity comes in many, many, many different forms. But traditional creativity, I'm in a Mardi Gras crew, and part of what we do for this Mardi Gras crew is create our throws. I have zero interest in creating throws. I want to dress up. I want to dance down the streets of New Orleans, but I do not want to create throws. And so the first year that I did this, begrudgingly, I got a little crew together. So I had my mom and one of my friends and her mom, and my husband was kind of involved. And I was like, okay, y'all are going to create the throws, and I'm going to be here and direct what everybody does because I don't want to do it. All of that comes back to I don't like being creative in the way that most people think of the way that I think of creativity. And somebody pointed out to me one time, well, you're creative in the way that you cook. And so, of course, in my life, literally everything goes back to food because that's what I know. So when we're doing this meditation, the little image that I was thinking of, this is going to sound very, very weird, but I felt like this little, I'm going to call it like Casper the Friendly Ghost, like this little airy sort of thing. Although Casper, it was green. He wasn't white. Like this little thing coming up being like, you can be creative. We just have to find the ways that are creativity that are not actually like crafting, like being imaginative, because I'm not a super imaginative person, and my husband is the opposite. Like he is overly imaginative. So in some weird kind of way, we've been together for a really long time. I feel like, all right, if anything needs imagination, I'll just toss that over to him and he'll imagine whatever we need to do ad nauseum. And so I feel like I've escaped. I don't need to be imaginative because I can hand that over to him. I don't need to be creative because I can find somebody else to do that. And it just holds me in this, like, I'm responsible though. I know how to be responsible. Yep. And so
it's
my little creativity.
To your ego values. That's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't have to be like this evil thing. The imagination is contradictory to what you think you are and to the ego, right, the values that your ego has.
Right. So my image was this little green gas kind of thing coming up going, no, you can be imaginative. We can find a way to make this all work.
You make beads out of cranberries.
What?
Your Mardi Gras throws.
You make food throws. Just put it all together.
I could do that. I'll have to like really think hard about how to do it, but I could.
Very beautiful. You know, I would say that like you're very fit for this kind of work. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
What would you say to Casper?
I would ask him like what he really wants. What does he really want to do? What is his creative energy? What are the things, you know, what are the locks and keys to him? What have I done to really repress and knock him away like in the basement?
Well, and if we get even deeper into that, the reason that I think that I haven't been creative in my life, I was never really challenged to be creative. I mean, for one part of it, but because I'm a perfectionist, I'm a recovering perfectionist. Mm-hmm. Sometimes not fully recovered, but recovering perfectionist. And so creativity would bring about a potential place for someone to criticize.
Yes.
And so I just like shut that out.
Or mistakes. Yep. So that's all in your shadow. And I think part of, you know, broadening the self is allowing creativity, but allowing, you know, mistakes to happen.
And I've gotten better.
What'd be
much
possible
better,
for you if you could just make mistakes? You know?
Yeah.
I'm also a perfectionist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm I'm older, so a little bit more down the recovering pathway than Jackie.
Yeah. I'm only putting my toes into the recovery. No, I'm working on it. On it.
I also loved how you said that you kind of just passed this off on your husband in a sense. And, you know, pardon the plug, but on January 17th, excuse me, I'm doing a workshop on relationships. It's called Heart Work. And I was having trouble thinking of a name because I wanted to try to imply that like this is a work, like this is real work aspect. And I loved how hard kind of sounded like hard. So hard work, but heart work. But, you know, the premise of the workshop and what inspired me was this book by James Hollis, The Eden Project. And I'm not going to butcher the definition. For the listeners, I'm going to read it out loud. And he says, the other great false idea that drives humankind is the fantasy of the magical other. The notion that there is one person out there who is right for us, who will make our lives work, a soulmate who will repair the ravages of our personal history, one who will be there for us, who will read our minds, know what we want, and meet those deepest needs. A good, perfect parent who will protect us from suffering, and if we are lucky, spare us the perilous version of individuation, of what we're talking about. So what he means, that's a lot there, right? But the end part is that if we find that right person who's going to take care of everything for us, we sacrifice actually becoming ourselves. And that's the premise. And it goes deep, really deep into a lot of things, but that's kind of the premise of the workshop. And we all kind of carry that image in our mind that we project onto others. So in relationships, we just bring a lot of unconscious traffic. And the workshop is about the burdens that we create, right? Because this other person is doing the same thing. And if we can learn to see the other, the partner, outside of our created image of them,
right?
That's usually when a lot of relationships fall apart, because with projection, you have the discrepancy and the cognitive dissonance. And then it's like, you're not who I thought you were, right? And then we get into power complexes, and I kind of go through that. But if we can learn and respect to see the other through the other and find a union through our actual differences, that's when the relationship can really, really grow into a different type of a potential. But it really begins when we lead our own journey of individuation.
Very interesting.
My husband doesn't know this, but I registered us.
Oh, shit.
Surprise, babe.
Merry Christmas.
It's going to be fun. I'm excited about it. I think that's a cool, I think we really take our partners for granted sometimes. And I think this is going to be a cool way to like deepen relationships.
Yeah. And I think I know we're running on time. One of the benefits of the workshop, I think, is just learning that we do project, learning that we're not seeing the total picture, learning that sometimes we bring overburdening responsibilities to our partners and to our relationships. But even like having some of the psychological language, like, is this your shadow or my shadow that's kind of like intertwining? Like, what am I putting on this person that's really more about me or my parents than is more about them?
Especially two shadows that are
So that's shadow boxing, right? So like we project, I believe the divine onto another partner, right? Like we fall in love with them for those kinds of reasons. And then when that projection wears away, the shadows come out and they box.
I was just literally on my way here listening to a podcast about that exact thing. And not to get into like I didn't listen to the whole thing, but basically what they were talking about is how do you find, it was talking more about dating. And essentially we used to live in communities where you had multiple people that served different roles for you. And so you found the person that you were your partner and they served the one role, but you had other people that served other roles for you to make you feel more fulfilled. And now in today's day and age, we expect one person to fulfill all of those roles. And it's really pretty impossible to have one person be everything that you want out of people, and how that helps, or how it, just the impact that plays on relationships, whether it's a new relationship or a developed relationship.
Yeah, I take it a step further. It's learning, like, we have needs. We'll never outgrow them, right? Like, it's part of being a human, is having needs. But it's, where do we bring our neediness? And our neediness is governed by fear. The opposite of love isn't hate, it's fear. And when we're governed by fear, then our neediness really starts to overburden. So if we can start to work with our fears, we learn to fulfill a lot of those roles, inside, and then we create this vulnerability to express like what we really need from partners. Like we could, this would be a whole different podcast.
Well, this has been awesome. I feel like I want to dig deeper. There's a lot of pages here, so I'm going to read them after this myself. Before we let you go, we always ask our guests one very important question. It's, what does living vividly mean to you? So, I mean,
it means a lot of things. And I watch the show and I think everyone gives beautiful answers. One of my favorite quotes, I forget who said it, I'd learned it from my yoga teacher, Gary Craftso, is that the purity of heart is to will one thing. So to me, living vividly is finding that one thing inside of you, developing a relationship with it, living it, and then letting it kill you. And the morbid part of the killing part is that happiness is fleeting, but meaning is lasting.
Thanks for listening to Living Vividly. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review and subscribe. We'd love to hear from you. For more resources and details from today's discussion, check out the show notes. Until next time, keep living vividly.